Good.
I just had a question about the PCT 110 and 130 research papers. For the presentation, are we able to use videos during our presentation?
Yep, as long as they're not real long. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
I think I have one that's like 2 minutes and maybe.
Yeah, because you just have 10 minutes to present, so yeah, you just include it however you think's best. But I wouldn't make any of them real long. That's for sure. Yep.
Yeah, I would just use it to emphasize points or
Yep.
whatever, but I was just making sure.
Yep.
Doing okay. How are you?
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about user preferences. Last week we went into creating your website or web page for your final app. There we go. So we're going to talk about preferences tonight, and then we're going to look at a website on helping us create preference app and to what preference is all about. NS user defaults is what is built in the methods we're going to use this week. It's basically used in app development to save app preferences. Examples like time zone and apps, and maybe a username, password for the app only, for the in-app, user profile, app-centric preferences like colors that they want, font size that they want, things like that. NS user defaults class it simple storage types like NS string, number, date, array, dictionary, NS data. It should be used to store small amounts of data like city, zip, preferences. So the next time they open the app, they don't have to remember that. In this case, it'd be overkill to store type in core data because it's just for that app install only. If they delete the app, they have to re-enter that preference information. So simple NS user defaults is used for that reason and helpful for setting up an app centric, whatever it might be. Again, for mainly for user profiles, user preferences, city, state, zip, things like that. So I'm going to switch over to a page that's more updated with our current version of Xcode on the setup part. So basically, you've all seen this type of app where in an app somewhere you've got somewhere to save settings possibly. It might be a toggle button like this one where you're saving a setting on preferences that you've just put in there. And we'll create this in action a little bit. I want to talk a little bit though about what's called NS user defaults. And again, user defaults can use these types of data, can save these types of data. For the most part, you're going to be saving in string for the most part, numbers, date. Those three are the top three. Then probably after that would probably be like data, which could be images, array, which could be a block of data, and then dictionary. The top three though that I use is these three right here, string, number, and date, which fits perfectly for app preferences. That's all you really need to know about that. But simple chunks of data is what's important about user defaults. It's really nice to use because it's easy to not only save it, but to read it. It doesn't take a long time to create it. And the app remembers it. But one of the first things you've got to do, and we'll do this in just a second, before you begin using app preferences, you've got to declare it. And the declaration for app preferences now in NS user default is in the view did load as always. Let defaults equals user defaults dot standard. And let defaults, the word defaults can be anything, but that's just what normal developers use for a default preference, because the word default stands for just default preference. It goes on and says, since you expected the key names for reading and writing, we want to minimize chances for typos. Goes on and talks about that adding two constants, one for each text field, another for each key switch is what's called, or switch key name. So this one here uses a let switch key constant equals switch key name. Switch key name basically would be the name of the field. And like if you're comparing it to database language like core data like we did. So switch data type or switch key would be like a field. Goes on back and talks about now we can go and use those and never have to worry about typing a name wrong because it can switch code names by using the switch constant. And on the view did load, if bring up this one here to be easier to see it. So if let text field equals defaults.string, and the text field will be whatever you have on your view. It might be a username field, it might be a password field, it might be a color change field, whatever. If that field equals the saved data for that key, and notice text field constant is the key that they're using in this example, it plugs in that data into that my text field. Going on down. This one has a switch statement in it. If it's on or off, that's a switch statement, because that toggle that we're going to use can either be on or off. Can't be anything but that. So if it's on, in the data, in the actual preference, enters user preference, it's going to switch the control to on. Otherwise, it's going to switch it to off. To save it, basically you take the contents. First is the default declaration. Let defaults equals usernet defaults.standard, defaults.set value, the name of the text object, which in this case is my text field.text, comma, for key, text field key constant, defaults.set, my switch is on, for key, switch constant. So in this case, if nothing is set, or the default set in this case for this app example is it's going to be set on when the app runs by default. If they want to change it, they can, but by default, it's going to be set to on. Going on down. So complete code here we'll look at and have you, we'll build a little simple app first. This is all of it, and I'll actually print it out for us. So what you can do now is, while I'm printing this out, you can build a single view app and just name it defaults, the name of the app. In fact, call it preference defaults. Preference defaults, one word, all one word, preference defaults, single view, Swift. You can make it universal is fine while I'm printing this out. And while you're waiting for me to print, you can put on the middle of the form or middle of the view a switch, and right below that switch, a button. So a switch and a button. I'm not used the switch in here yet, so you'll see how that works. So a switch and then a button, just put them in the center of the view. And I'll print this code out for us so we can use it. Preference defaults, all one word's fine. It doesn't have to be that, but just something, but stick with that one, it's fine. I was going to name it defaults first, but sometimes iOS has a problem naming things the word default, and so that's why it's preference defaults. to give you a switch, and then put a button below the switch. Go ahead and pass one over if you would. Okay, I'll do this with you on the overhead as well. It does have the names for the constants or the variables at the top. It's going to be the text field is going to be, I forgot to tell you about a touch field. We need a text field in there as well. Text field, a switch, and a button is what we're going to need. So let me fire mine up. I'll do it with you. Everybody should have a handout. Bless you. And let me look here. That basically looks like the text box at the top, switch below that, and then a button below that. We'll put it just like mine. The names of the objects, by the way, when you could create there's two outlets that we'll create, one for the text field, one for the switch, and then an action we'll create for the button. I'll leave that up here just like that while you're getting yours on your view. And then I will do everything with you. If you want to go ahead, you can go ahead and declare the two let statements. You can create the two outlets if you want to. Just click and drag them into the code. And by clicking on the Olympic symbol for that, for the editor. And this button, just remember it's a action. But if you want to wait, you can wait on me and I'll do it with you. Just get my objects on there. So let's see, text field first. Switch. Okay, I'll go switch mine to my screen. Let's see it. So I've got on there like you do, the text field at the top. I put here. I put switch here. Save settings here. And that's a button. I just double click on, typed in save settings. Then according to the handout here, where you got to create an outlet for the text field, an outlet for the switch. So let's create one for the text field first, which is my text field. And so I'm going to click on the ellipsis here, the assistant editor. It'll take me into the code. And I'm going to take this first one, which is a text field there. Control click it, and I already got my in there, but you're going to click and drag yours in the code underneath the UI view controller. And when it pops up, you're going to name it my text field. Name it my text field. Just like it's spelled out on the handout there. IB outlet weak var my text field is what you're going to name it. Make sure the spelling is just like this. My text field just like that. I will get rid of this stuff here. Go ahead and create another outlet once you've done that for the switch by clicking and dragging it into the code and naming it my switch. Lowercase my, caps S, just like it's spelled out on the handout. Spell it just like that. Once you're finished, both of yours should look like mine, like I've just done. You should have my text field as a UI text field as an IB outlet, and you should have my switch as a UI switch as an IB outlet. Once you do those two, go ahead and do the same for your button, like I've done. Remember that on this one, the button is going to be an action. Make sure before you select, after you name it to my button, make sure you select UI button as underneath the action, not just any button, but get one named UI button. And then create it. This code here will not be in there because it's in your handout. Once you create those two outlets and this button, then you can use your handout to flesh in everything else. Code-wise. Okay, I'll kind of walk around and help you. Try to center your items on your view like I've done as well. Don't worry about it right now while you're getting your code in. But the last thing we'll do is we'll do an editor constraints as always. Make sure it's all lined up. Let's see, my text field. Make sure you spell this one just like that. Two lats have to be spelled. Everything has to be spelled as is on the handout. Okay, you're creating the two lets first. Yep, action for the button, and make sure, as in mine, you select the UI button on the drop down, which is going instead of any on type, select UI button. Then you can start at the top of your sheet, and you guys have to create the two let statements, which are the two variables, the field constant and the switch constant. Then you can go right into the you did load, create the code in there, then right into your button and create the code in there. And everything's on your handout exactly as you typed it in. Yep, right there's perfect. Yep, above the last red bracket's fine. Change it to an action. Name it exactly like it is there. My button, caps B. Make sure any is selected. Change any to UI text or UI button. Then click connect. There we go. Then you're starting up here at the very top. Do the two let statements first. You don't have quotes around it. See how it's quotes? You have to have quotes around it. You have to type everything exactly as it is on the handout. Your functions might be a little different on the sheet than what mine is, but you can make sense of it. Good. I'm gonna get rid of that line for now. I don't. Go right to the view did load and start typing everything in between the brackets. So underneath that comment, do any additional before the right bracket. Before the right bracket. Nope, before the right bracket. Make sure when you're typing in the view did load, you look up here, you're going to start typing right underneath where it says do any additional setup. That's where you're going to start typing. Do not type after the right bracket. Keep the right bracket intact. So start typing right after this line. After that comment line, start typing this text in. Same thing with your button. Your button's going to be shoved into two lines. You're going to have to put your cursor on the end here and hit enter to type in these lines of code. Right? Every function is going to have a left bracket and a right bracket. Just make sure you keep that intact. Perfect. Yep, you're doing good. Yep, you got it. Give yourself some space. If you see warnings or errors, especially if you're going into your did load, don't worry about them until you're finished with that function. Then go up and see there's some, I'm guessing it's misspelling, this grammar that you typed in. What up? Yeah, default style string, left parentheses, full keys, string, whatever. Oh, by the way, once you to make your screen a little nicer to type in, probably best to go back to the view, this view right here. If you look at the overhead, you want to click on this view here, which is the standard editor. That way you can see your, and then click on view controller. You can see everything a lot nicer. Type in. Some of you are typing in, seeing your GUI screen and the code both. You want to just see your code. It's a little easier to type in that way. So click on that. Yep. And then click on your view controller. A lot much nicer. Bless you. Standard editor icon. Yep. Click on view controller on the left. Exactly what it has. Like on this screen I'm seeing, can you after the text value with it? Yep. Yep. Yeah, so you just verify from top to bottom and that function should be okay. I'm leaving my code up there as well so you can see it. Sometimes it's easier to, papers might wrap something differently than what the code does maybe sometimes. I think we're okay. I think there's any long stretches on that, so. Okay, you're working outside of the left and right bracket of the view did load. Yeah, that if on the if. I think so. Jump on if let text. Text field. Okay. You can actually take your cursor at the end of my text field, like it is here. Hit the 4 key, left bracket, put your cursor before my text. Make sure my text on some line. Right here. See how it is here? Yep. And then take that right bracket, bring it down like it is here on the sheet. There you go. And then just follow suit the rest of them. Make sure it looks just like that. You might have been outside the right bracket, possibly. You might have been trying to put it outside the right bracket, maybe. Yeah, there's no right bracket. Your button's outside the right bracket, the last right bracket of your code. In fact, that's your very last right bracket. Yeah, automatic. Okay, good. Yeah, you got. Too many, so get rid of one. Yeah, it's small. Yeah, it's because you got too many left. It's not enough right brackets in that. My fault here. I'll tell you. Yes, it's nicer. Okay, so yeah, right bracket. Notice you have to click on that. You notice what happens. See, that's kicking it down there. So what we do is take that, get rid of it. So that's all in. That's all in there now. Now you should be able to bring in that button. Try to drag that. Try to control dragging into that button code. Yep. Good. Look good there. You might be on top here. Let me show you guys something real quick on your code. If you ever type stuff in wrong or get rid of a right bracket, you're not going to be able to add code in. If you look on the overhead, notice on line 12, if I put my cursor on the end of line 12 and click my mouse, I want you to also notice, if you look on line 44, as I click my mouse, what's happening? You guys see it? See what's happening on line 44? See how it's yellow, that yellow icon, or that yellow color? What that says is that's the right bracket ending of this left bracket I'm clicking on at the top. Okay, if you click on that and that right bracket is not where mine's at, you need to move it because you've put your code below the right bracket of the entire class. All right? And anytime, by the way, when you click a left bracket anywhere in your code, it will show you the right bracket of that function that you're in, which is helpful because sometimes you're like, especially if you have a lot of at the end of your code, 10 right brackets, which you can have easily, right? Or more. Just do that. It's going to help you a lot. But by clicking on the top one, making sure the bottom right bracket should be the very bottom one. No, it shouldn't be up here in the middle. If it's up here in the middle, when you click on the top left bracket, you've typed code below the bottom right bracket, and nothing will work. All right. Again, if you look at, it's tedious, but if you look at your handout, and what I have on the overhead is exactly as on your handout, you're going to find you have either too few right brackets or you've moved right brackets in the wrong area. Too few left brackets or right brackets, or you move brackets in the wrong area.
Mine doesn't highlight.
Do what now? If yours doesn't highlight, both can be wrong left and right bracket. Okay, go to this view like I'm in right now, and click on View Controller. Then click on the left bracket. Yeah, it's messed up. Yep, you've got, that's the left, just I right now. View Controller, left. So we go back to the menu. Click on that view controller there. Go to your class icon. Very good. No, that's okay. Then click on the little arrow. See an outlet for what my switch, text field, and it doesn't have to be on the button yet. So let's click on the button. Click on the circles. We can drag right below the right bracket, right above the right bracket. Yep. It's an action. Make sure you spell it just like this here. Make sure and change the type from any to UI button before you click continue. Make sure the spelling's like it is on there. Yeah, my button is spelled just like that. There we go. Now, if you want to look up here real quick, I know I was going to stop what you're doing real quick. I know some of you are still coding. But when you're finished coding and there's no errors like mine, when you go back to your storyboard, click on your view controller and make sure you click on editor, resolve, and then reset to suggested constraints as always before you try to run it, okay? Make sure you do that before you try to run it the first time. I'll go back to my code view. So continue coding. You're doing good. You get stuck, start at the top and work your way down your code. If you get finished with no errors and you've done the auto fit from the editor menu, you can go ahead and do a Command R and run it and test the app out. Okay, I'm gonna go and switch mine over so you can see the finished product, and then I'll walk around those that need help. And so the way it works is when the app runs, according to the code, is it uses, first of all, before we go into the code, it uses the text field constant, key constant called text field, is called text field key name. And then text field switch constant to switch key name. And the reason these two are used is so the text will never show up, by the way, in the my text field. It'll basically just use it as a constant variable. That way, after loading, you don't have to worry about putting in the wrong key. It just uses that as a dummy information, basically. It's up here. So you'll notice in the view did load, it brings in the standard user defaults. It checks the text field value. If let text field value dot or just equal, not a dot operator, just equals. Because on that one here, the text field value is just an object right now. There's nothing in it. Equals text field constant. Then it's going to plug in the variable in my text field, which is going to be either a 0 or 1. Then here, it finds a default from that. If defaults.bool is switch key constants, it's going to be yes or no, true or false. So it's going to load in here on the key constant, my switch key constant, true or false on that one. And it's going to be determined by this object right here, bless you, if it is true or false. So I'm going to put some breaks in here to run it first. I'm going to put a break here on line 22. I'm going to put a break on line 24, 28, and 30 and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and run it. Okay, so I'm going to step through it with the F6 key on my keyboard. I can step through each line. I hover over defaults. It gives me this ugly value here, which is just basically the NS user default value. Just declaring it. Next, here, notice it's empty quotes on the text field.value because we didn't put, there's nothing in there. There's nothing in that whatsoever to use. And there won't be. Next, text field value right now, empty, nothing in it. Keep going. Defaults.bool. Now it's using what's in the actual database. Defaults.bool, it's looking for the key. If I say this before, for the key or the field I talked about earlier called switch key constant. And notice it bypassed the on statement, meaning it's false. So it switched it on as false, and that ends it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the reverse here. I'm going to save it. Click the on, but before I save it, I'm going to go into the code here and put a breakpoint on the save button down there at the bottom to show you what happens when you save it. So first line again, I'm just hitting the F6 key to step through these. Sets the default. You got to do that each time. So notice when I was reading on the view did load, the user defaults has to be set. When I'm writing, has to be set as well. This next line will set the value of my key text field to that key. I'll step through it. Key constant. And I'm going to put some print statements in there so you can see it. So I'm going to stop it, start it again. Now it should say it's saved because I hit save button. It should be on now when it runs. So we'll step through it. There you go. Switch key constant is true. So the switch is on. Now let's show you a trick here too, because you can't see some of those values as they're coming through. I'm going to put a print statement in here. I'm going to print the switch key constant as a string. We can see what it is coming in. I'm going to put in here, I'll just put it as that for right now so we'll see it. I'm going to get rid of these breakpoints by control clicking on these. Okay, so down here in my debugger on the right window, you're going to see in a second, I'm going to hit this trash can to delete everything. And so I'm going to do a Command R. We should see down here in the debugger a value kicked out. If we can't make sense of it, I'll put some text up here in a second in that print statement. Switch key name. That's what it printed out right here. In fact, just to make sure that's what it did, and that's the right one, I'm going to put in here key name space cognate it in there so I can just make sure that's the case. So it should say key name space, then whatever it is. It should say switch key name. Remember, I set it to on, and notice the key name here, it just needs a value in there. It's all it needs, some content in that field, and the value is switch key name. Okay, now if I switch this off, hit save, go ahead and put that same print statement in there as I have up here. I'm going to put it down here right before the save. Key constant. Key 2 for that one, key 1 for that one. Okay, get rid of this breakpoint. All right, now I'm going to run it again. So now I'm going to hit the save button this time. You're going to see a set key 2 with something that shows up there, whatever it might be. We'll find out. Okay, so if you'll see here when it loaded, key 1 was switch key name, key 2 text field key name. It just needs something in that variable. If I hit off now, I'm going to save it as being off. Hit save. Notice key name 2, text key name. I'm going to stop it, play it again. Now you'll notice when switch key name loads up that it's turned off. Okay, because what it's doing is storing the value of 0 or 1 in this switch key name each time to determine if it's on or off, true or false. It's storing in this variable basically true or false, and it's actually saving it down here on whether or not that switch is on or off. So if I copy that down here, and I'm going to put it inside this statement here, so we can see what the switch statement is. I'm going to put switch is colon. Let's see what that is. So now I put a print statement here to determine what the switch state is when it saves, because whatever that state is, it's going to save it into the field switch key constant here. Switch state is true. Everybody see that? Switch state is true. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Switch state is false. See that? Yes. Excuse me? Okay, I'll help you with it in a second. So everybody get how that works on the switch on or off on the saving function? It's saving the value on or off, true or false, into the switch constant. It's loading it each time, saving in that constant each time, and it's in the NS user default. Then on the load time, it's bringing it in according to whatever that switch constant might be. All right, it's reading for the key of the switch constant on this line right here. It's looking for that key, it's finding it for that key, and then it's printing it out, whatever that key might be. All right. So it says if defaults bool for that key, it's going to be either true or false. If it's true, it's going to go here. If it's false, it's going to go here. All right. Questions before I walk around? I'll help you. Make sure before you run it, if you haven't already, if you've not yet run it, make sure you take your main.storyboard, click on the view control at the top, editor, resolve, reset to suggested constraints before you run it. I'll kind of walk around, see how you're doing. Once I check off everybody's, we can upload that, and we'll go ahead and upload it to 10 in GitHub. Install. Yeah. I did the first one. I did that first one. I did that's why you have a whole bunch of stuff on it. You need to control there and do a long. That's what's happening. Yeah, you don't need it. You don't need that text field involved. It's just a dummy. Yeah. So if you get it to save, make sure you've got it to save and then open it. Play around with the toggle switch to have it save it and both be the green there like mine is and turn it off and on and save it. Make sure that's working on the preferences. And nothing will ever show up in that text box, by the way. It's just used for a filler to make sure you never have to worry about getting the wrong key. Save it. Go ahead and save it. Go ahead and stop the app. Stop it. It's no run it again. You gotta turn it on. Go ahead and press that button. And it'll stop. Again. Turn it on. Stop it.
Yeah. It's just what we're in right now.
No, show green or something. Or it's at the top. You should say good name. So that's what we got there. That's what we so spaces. Text field. Subjects. Context field. On the line. Good.
Yeah, I was forgetting.
Switch.
I know. I was just doing. So that's finished. I just do whatever. Yeah. So I can open something here.
Specs are constant. Both of them. I put a variable back on other people's.
Yeah.
Go back to the storyboard. On your blind form, so you'll do that. Go over here to the right of it. Stop it. Stop.
That's not, I was well, like because it's such a type of I wouldn't have like all that knowledge for like all of it. Like because I'd be like, well, you can put in like this, like you also charge or you'd be like, oh, that one you can help this off gas. And then I was also using like a segmentation finding. So you start and because you're going like this one, this fast. Yeah, that's why I was going seven. Yeah, the second 2 hours before as I said, it's sort of talking about that on like Shark Tank. Because nobody's going to this. Yeah. You know, see that's problem. The only problem is that I would need, and why I would need a summer to only because I would need to make sure it's on all having access to like the cameras. Yeah. Because I probably they'll take that'd be that's simple. It's big prize. Plus that's it's gonna be like make it no ads. Every business person because they don't want to
It's not bad. It is required a lot of
I'm just excited. I just have this pumped up to this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, I finally
But it's hard. I think I'm doing so basically so
you could have the right.
yeah, direct. So it was notifying you either side he's shut the scene in or he's shut the
So thanks for helping each other after you're done. Thank you. I'll make my way around.
If he be like, oh, it's this type of decision, like before you like.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, well, I'm thinking that's it. You would pick up some also request.
He showed me that because I was having problems with some of the other apps, and he's like, what's this? Like it just tells me that was your code if you have problems. You can look at it.
Speaking of that.
And then if you have no problems, it should if it's like nothing's popping up or whatever. You didn't activate.
Yeah.
Because I think my issue was I couldn't get to it.
I mean, basically anyone that runs off.
Looks like you've been
Yeah, but what I typed, so it wasn't connected.
I just like
Because I had
the only thing that
try it. If you can slide over, save it.
I'm mostly
like look at it.
I'm like making it like
It's the book portion, it's what they're connect with that part to save my books. So like everything
because
else
the other
is
thing
right.
right now is kind of
So that was just my copy because I
I'll stop it.
because I have to
So it's
because
so the applicants
all these references that was
process.
take all that information from everywhere.
Yeah, or maybe.
Yeah, it's not gonna go, because it's not gonna go.
That was saying the products and show your problem. Sure.
That'd be cool. I could, yeah, I think that'd be really, really my idea.
You guys go along.
In contact with the website,
Yeah.
I use this for like, they probably like.
Yeah.
Try to get that website.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, I just keep it anywhere. That's really good. So just that one thing, so that you like.
Yeah. Something.
We call another big thing is, oh, in my area, so I never, but it would just be because it would be something like let's have the video, like, you know, it's not your destination. And then you just go like, now, so I actually wanted to do like, you know how it's I just do like that.
Yeah.
I really want to do that this weekend. Where he would notify you at the end. Or he would notify you at the end. You know how you go through that. And then the right one, the drop down, like, I'll probably just be like, yeah, so I wanted to say anything about what this
Yes.
work. Like, user beliefs.
All right. Anybody else need help? Everybody good? Anybody need help?
The second piece of
You don't have to, I don't need it for you, from you. I would recommend using it like I did to, while you're stepping through your code, I do recommend using it, and I use it all the time just to see what's happening, because even on that breakpoint, when you break stuff, we put a breakpoint on here. You'll notice some of these values you can't see by hovering your mouse over it. Sometimes you can, but you can always see if you put a print statement in there. And the print statement's only going to be, it's only going to show up for the developer. It's not going to show up if you give somebody to test or something, or you yourself test. It's just for dev stuff. That makes sense? Yeah. Just so you can step through. But no, I don't need to see it in your code, but it's good practice to use the print statements for sure. And let me go over some stuff that I saw that's going around. One is spaces. Make sure when you're declaring your variables, you got a space before, after the variable name, then after the equal sign. If it's shoved together like this, sometimes Swift has issues with that. So it's best to have spaces like that available. That makes sense? Make sure you do that. The other thing is, had issues with quite a few issues with the right bracket on the code. Make sure when you're bringing your objects into your code for the first time, keep the integrity of the initial left and right bracket of the view did load, or of the entire object, actually, the entire class, because some of you had your code below the very right bracket of the application, and that happens. So if you ever drag and drop objects into your code and you can't, two reasons why you can't. One is the class isn't bound to the view, which in this case, there's only one class that came with it. So that's the first one I always check. Second is you've dragged that object outside of the right bracket of that class. Okay, it's like way down here or something, and that's not gonna work. All right. So I always check first, especially if you have more than one view, that the class is set. The other thing is I was walking around, and this happens sometimes when you drag objects or when you click on this icon here, it's not all the time that it's automatic. It might be set to manual, and you have to go in here and literally set it to automatic. Then it goes to the right view for you to drag and drop your code. That makes sense? And what it's going to, by the way, is the class that view is bound to. That's what it's going to. All right? Make sense? Did good, but user defaults is used quite a bit throughout coding. So here's what I want you to do before we go any further. I want you to go ahead and exit out of this project, go to File, Close Project, and go ahead and see if you can do, without any help from me, submit this folder to your GitHub on your Mac without any help. See if you can do it. Okay? And you're going to submit it as it is, as it's the name and everything, just like it is. Don't change anything. Just submit it as it is for me. And then that URL, let me see here. Yeah, I think the only thing I have in here for the end class this week is, do you understand how preferences work? Do you understand how preferences work and why they work and how they work? Basically used for, simple preferences, color preferences, name, city, state, zip, stuff like that. It is app-centric, meaning it's only for your app. It's not stored in an external database. So what you do store in a preference is pretty secure. It's actually more secure than storing it externally on a cloud somewhere, because it's only on that app only that it's stored. So you'll see apps like Facebook, Twitter. When you sign up, when you download Facebook or Twitter onto your phone, do you have to log in every time you launch the app? It's once. And you know where it saves that now after tonight? It saves those credentials in user preferences every time. And it's a secure area outside of your phone. People can't even get to because it's only in your phone. Make sense? Yeah.
So then in theory, if they had the backup of your phone off of iTunes, all of that.
If they got the backup, if somebody did get a backup of your phone, was able to decrypt it with your username, password, yeah, they could definitely do that. Yeah, for sure. But again, they'd have to have your username and password. They'd have to be able to sign into your iCloud and all that good stuff. Not to say that couldn't happen, but it could. But again, they wouldn't know your username and password because it'd be embedded.
And then
in order to change it,
weird data symbol inside of Xcode anyway.
And in order to change it in Facebook and Twitter, you still have to go in and type in your old one first. So they're not going to be able to do that even. So they can do some, maybe post some stuff you don't like or whatever, but that's about it. So after you've committed it to GitHub, while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about your take home, which is basically, as always, a modification of the end class, except this week I do have a final app option. I know some of you are already starting to work on your final app. You could already put in your app this week, your final app, a user preference of some type. It could be right now just you want them to put their, I don't know, their name in there or something for right now, like their first name, last name or something. I don't know. Just thinking out loud. That would be fine. You're doing user preference. You're just putting in your own app that you're going to actually create this in the next few weeks. And so that makes sense. So you have a final app option. You don't have to do that, but if you wanted to, you could. And maybe your app won't even use it, so it wouldn't even work for yours, but maybe it would. If you don't want to do that or can't, you can go in here and create an example app. And I have up here, the app I have for you to do is a full name, address, check the year of birth, modify it, modify the date range from 1940 to 2012 as needed, or 2020. And I don't think anybody should, because I don't think anybody's born before 1940, and I don't think anybody's born after 2020. So I think it should be okay. Full name, address, a load event button, and a save event button to save it. So basically, you use the same code we use today. The one that's going to be new to you is a picker, but I do have an example source. I'm actually updating that one tonight, so it's old code, so I'm going to update it, so don't look at it yet. I'll email everybody when it's out there. But if you don't want to do that one, you don't have to. Just as long as you use an app that has that stores preferences, I'm fine with that. From here on out, I'm going to be kind of flexible on what you do from your take home. As long as you incorporate in an app, whether it's your final app or an app of your choosing, as long as you incorporate that in there, I'm fine with that. Make sense? And so as long as I look at your code and when I run it, I say, okay, you're using user preferences. That's all I really care about. Questions on your take home? And again, I'll email you when that example source is ready, because it's like version 3.2 or something. And especially those of us that have upgraded our Xcode at home, that's what I'm doing it for. So everybody else, then this will work. But anyway, I'll make it work. It'll work for both groups in here. So, but thanks for helping tonight on it, everybody. As far as walking around, just to kind of forward fast a little bit, as far as what's coming up. Tomorrow night we do have, and you are invited. I know some of you have already RSVP'd. I'll bring it up here. It's the RBC Tech Expo. It starts at 6 o'clock, goes to 8:15. And we will have 4 speakers. We'll have about 12 companies there as well. And the idea is basically to get students aware of local companies in the area that are tech companies that hire for programmers, networking folks, PC repair, web designers, everything that you guys are taking in this building, basically. All the companies that will be there do that all the time, and they hire for it all the time. And so from 6 to 8:15 is the time frame. We'll have water and pizza when you come in. We've got great giveaways I'll talk about in a second. We'll also have a speaker coming. Sasha's coming from Pace University. She just wrote a book on Sasha Ariel beginning coding, how I began coding. talks about her journey to become a coder when she was 12 years old, going to coding camp, and she wrote a book about that. On Twitter, her Twitter account, which is pretty cool, is the STEM Queen. And yes, question? Do I know? A resume? No, you don't. You don't need to bring a resume. Because companies that will be there will walk you through whatever it is they want you to do. A lot of them actually last year hired students right on the spot at the table. They already know kind of where you guys are at, that you have little or no experience. And just by being at that event, they know you're interested in an internship, pretty much, most of you. Or you're interested in the future, some near future, some type of tech job, right? So no, you don't have to bring one. Do you, is it bad to bring one if you want to bring one? No, it's not bad. It's just you don't have to bring your resume. And by the way, like last year, Biscani Computers on Perryville was there. He's going to be there again. In fact, he's the one pictured here in this picture here. He's on the left. The students that are filling out that right there, they're filling out internship forms. And all of them are at the table were hired that next week to work for them. And so that gives you an idea of how these people work. It's like, you want a job? Great. When can you start? What's your schedule? That's what it is. So that's pretty good. And so, yeah, 6 to 8:15. Okay, and I'll go over the agenda real quick. The agenda is starts at, get there. 5:30 to 6 is registration. Dress casual, dress business casual. It's fine. You can wear jeans and just a nice shirt. That's fine. Stop by the registration table and check in with your Eventbrite ticket. If you don't have an Eventbrite ticket, there's a place on this website to register. I'll show you in a second. Welcome is from 6 to 6:05. I'll welcome everybody. Mobile app is up first from Trek here in town. He creates mobile apps in iOS like we're learning this semester. And he'll be there speaking to you about mobile app development and what his company does. When you go to his table afterwards, he will talk to you about and share with you more information about mobile app development, what's out there in the field, jobs available. Web programming, Ty Comics is going to be speaking on web programming. They're a local firm that does web development, app development, Windows app development, both. And then Sasha is going to be speaking from Pace, New York. She'll be there, be Skyping in for about 20 minutes. Her book will be on sale. The bookstore will be there. We will be giving away some of her books too, and some as a giveaway as well. Book's not real expensive anyway, but anyway, we'll be giving her book away. And she's been on multiple top talk shows, and like Good Morning America's had her on here recently over the summer. And she encourages girls to get into and women to get into coding. And so some are already here, so that's great. So I encourage you to come. You'll be not just women, but men also be inspired by what she has to say, because she also speaks to Fortune 500 companies on hiring more women and being more diverse. I don't know if you heard in the news recently what happened to Google, kind of the leaked email where the executives were it was kind of leaked out kind of how they felt about women, which wasn't too great. And so, it's I think a hot topic, even though people aren't talking about it really a lot. I think it is personally. It needs to be talked about more. So that's why I invited her to come. And so you'll enjoy it. And she will be answering like 2 or 3 questions at the end if we have time. She's going to try to answer some questions. She wants to do that. And then the last one is a new one on the block. He's not bad. He didn't come to one last year anyway. But he owns Illuminati.io is a company name. And it's a networking company. They also focus on ethical hacking and training companies. And so if you're into like ethical hacking or how hacking works, he's going to actually demo some stuff tomorrow night on how all that works and show some examples and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And then connection time is from 7:05 to 8:05, where you'll visit tables and local businesses that I already mentioned, some of them. We'll look at the rest of them in a second. Internships and job opportunities. And you'll get a bag when you come in with a pen and some paper to go when you go around these tables. It'll have literature to put in those bags for you. So take those. RBC Career Services, resume building and job connections will be there. CIS faculty will be there. Advising and programming course information will be there. And so the speakers, there they are right there. Sam, Andrea, Sasha, and Joe. Andrea might not speak. She might have one of the programmers speak, but either way, it'll be good. Whoever does speak from her company. Here's the sponsors, some of those that are going to be at the tables there tomorrow. It's a pretty good list. And as far as registering, there is a link to register at the top of the site as well. You can just go up there and click register. And it'll take you to the Eventbrite page where you can register. It doesn't cost anything. I think we have about 110 officially registered right now. And we've got some classes going that didn't register that have 20 or 30 kids. So it'll probably be 130, 140 people, I'm thinking, somewhere around there. And the student center will be packed, basically, but that's okay. But that's fine. That's what we want anyway. And so this is kind of a picture of what it looked like last year. We fill up the entire center part of it. So it'll be like that this year again. So hopefully everybody can come. It'll be good. If you don't have class or don't have to work, or even if you can get off work for a couple hours, probably worth it because you get to meet some great companies. One last company I'll mention, it's not on the list. I just invited him, was Russ Delaney from Delaney and Associates. He does 3D printing, and I've had him on campus every semester the last 8 years. And I've always been like a hobbyist 3D printer type person, rapid prototyping, stuff like that. So anyway, this is what he does for a living. And he also is a reseller now of 3D printers. He's just a wealth of information on 3D printing. And so he's going to bring his 3D printer in and some of the stuff he's printed out and talk to students about rapid prototyping, which that's also big in the technology field on rapid prototyping is. And so where you can take an idea and rapid prototype it within, like, say, 10, 15 hours, have a rapid prototype with a 3D printer. So Joe, he's a really interesting person, very high energy, and loves to share all of his what he knows about 3D printing. So looking forward to it. So hopefully you can come to it 6 to 8:15. If you've not yet registered, rbctechexpo.com is the domain. Questions? All right. Well, that's all for tonight. If you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll kind of walk around and help those that are needed. But I looked at some of your websites that you did last week. Did a great job. If you've not yet submitted your GitHub website, you have till midnight tonight to get that done. And do not start to take home unless you, well, you can start to take home if you're not going to use the example link there, because I'm going to redo that one because it's older code, level 6 months old. But anyway, I'm going to redo that for you. So if you need help, kind of hang back and I'll help you out. Walk around. Yeah. Oh, to submit to GitHub?
Yeah, that's not the so this one I don't know.
Okay, you're using the old version of GitHub. So did you log in your GitHub account? Yep.
Plus, I don't know. So this is why I need to online.
No, but you did exactly that right. You just go down here and put your initials and summary.
Maybe my sign.
It wouldn't let you do this if you want to log in. Okay. Just your initials. And to double check to make sure you're on, if you go to GitHub Desktop Preferences, and then go to Accounts, it'll tell you if you're not logged in. Yeah, the interface on this one will roll with the new Mac GitHub application. All right, now go back over here and move to master. And then publish. And uncheck private, and then publish it. That's it. Make sure to do one more push before you're done. All right. Cool. Awesome. All right. All right, you're good. Did you log in now? Remember to log in? GitHub, desktop. All right, go ahead and do commit to master. See commit to master bottom left.
Yeah. Just do like.
Is it your name or something? Push it. Yeah, push it. Check. That's you. Oh, you're still running the app. Stop. Oh. If you stop. It's still seems it's not like I'm just always just make sure. I already submitted. I don't even want to do this without just. I just want to. Good practice. He's not. Okay, I'll walk through that in just a second. Okay, you mind? What I might do is just, let's see. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but. Either way. That's okay. I've had my Right. Yeah. You're talking about for your website? You didn't need a folder. Remember I told you to create a brand new repo on GitHub.com. Your username, create a repo, create your website.com. Instructions. That's right here. When you get out account, you go there and create a repository. Well, you just go up and GitHub.com. So, I did a video on that last week. Last 10 minutes of the video, just create a website. Watch that. You'll see it. Good. Are you logged in GitHub.com? Let's go to the picture. Make sure you get your account. Are you logged in? Okay. All right. You want to go up here now to repository. So there's a new repository. Click that. Put in their name like my website now. My website. Check public. Check the box initialize. Now we'll go to settings. Settings. All the way to the bottom. And see where it says source none under GitHub pages. Master page. Is that good? Scroll down. Now click choose theme. Select the theme. And scroll down to the bottom and make some changes. Now if we go to our website, go back to the settings, scroll down, should have a URL there above you. So it says your site is ready at that address. Your site is ready to publish at. On that link, boom, your website. Copy that, go back to that, click on edit. Click the website. Yeah, wherever you can go through it. My website. Yep. Go to edit. To mine. And then website again. Yeah, you would. You wouldn't mind print, or you just save it on your phone. Yeah, save it on your phone. So,
Is there any way to like still get
well, the speakers, there's contact information, but the rest of you just do it in the hands of your own. Yeah. And then go back to my website. And there's the URL. That's one. And edit that. You know, to edit this page, basically, you just go in and edit. That's it. And so let's go in there and just play around. And here basically tells you something about it. So you scroll to the top, just replace welcome to GitHub pages to final app or something. And scroll down to the bottom and save it. Now go ahead and go to the top of the code now. Website. I'll take a second to refresh it. Refresh it. Did you choose a theme on here? There you go. You got it. One thing you want to do though is you go up higher, go over to settings, scroll down. See where it says right here, it says here does not resolve, and you gotta hit change theme. Go ahead and select your theme. Well, I don't know, and then hit select. And then scroll down to the bottom. The URL will show up there. Scroll down. Because that's your URL. CIS280. Click on that. Oh, you must have done something. Is that your site? Is that your actual website? Oh, okay, I got you. That's your actual domain?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to go up to the top. Go over the CIS280. CNAME, you see that. Well, you've got GS.blue. You have to change stuff. It looks like you're trying to set up your own domain through GitHub. That's what I didn't need to do that. There's quite a few steps you have to do that on the domain side. You have to set up a CNAME as well. Yeah, new. Yeah, public's fine. Make sure it's public. Go public. Go to settings. Scroll down. Web source. Master. Save it. Choose a theme. Scroll down. Just save it for right now. So it's a URL. Go to settings again. Scroll down. It should say URL. Your site is ready. Click on that. Copy that. Back. Final app. And click on editor. And then put the URL, which is website. Save it. If you click on that, let's go into the final app. Hit the refresh button on your keyboard. Yep. So now you have to edit that. Basically, you have to go back and hit the readme.md. You have to edit that. Here's some help with your market. Page one's header file, H2, listing, whole list. You don't understand.
For some reason, my thing doesn't ever show up. That's all I did.
Oh. And you did select a GitHub theme?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Oh, you have an index. If you have an index HTML, that'll override your GitHub theme. Because see, your GitHub theme is going to be driven only by
The README.
README. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So if I delete out the index.md or index.html, it should.
Yeah, in fact, if I go in here to the settings, you've already selected a theme, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So yeah, if we just test that logic, go in here and I'll leave it in there. Just
I even cleared it out, just deleted everything inside of that index.html, and it wouldn't do anything.
no. Let's see. Is there anything in there? There's some stuff in there.
Just
Looks like.
copy and paste.
Okay.
I've got it saved elsewhere too.
Okay, I'm gonna delete it then.
I've lost terabytes of videos and music. I back everything up like it's freaking
Good.
going out of style.
That's a good idea. Yeah, great. All right, cool. Let's see. Now we got the README in there. There's your Jekyll theme. That's not gonna hurt anything. That's not gonna hurt anything. Let's see what your URL is. This is what I do. I just
It should be that one right there too.
yeah, this one I would keep. That's one it's gonna go to.
Well, I mean, I have that open just in a different tab.
Oh, I got you. I see. I'm just going to save it here. That way you don't keep going, remembering what it is, because I hate going back and have to remember it. If you hit edit on this, on the main root of your GitHub, you can paste the URL in there. And then from that point on, you just click on that and it'll show up. It'll take a second to update it. There we go.
Beautiful. That's so much better.
And then read the markup code stuff if you haven't already.
And make it
Pretty
look
simple.
prettier.
Yeah, make it look a little nicer. It doesn't have
Yeah, I
to
was
be
just trying to
real
figure out
fancy.
why my theme would not
Yeah, that's
show up.
why if it has an index, it'll HTML will always override it. It'll first precedence anyway.
I appreciate it. I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with it.
Yeah, and I don't believe, I know it's somewhere in documentation, but it's not like right front and center. I know
And-
that.
Everything I was reading online says you need an index.html file. I'm like, okay, so I'll have an index.html
Yep.
file.
Yeah, and you can, but then that's what it's going to use.